Hello, music fans. You're watching Death by Unicorn, where we talk about metal, rock, and prog music. And today I'm doing something different, something special. Today I'm reviewing a classic album. I haven't really done this much before. I mostly talk about new stuff when they come out. But at least for me, I consider this album a classic. It's turning 20 years old. I can't believe it. And it's the album that first got me into progressive metal when I was 14, turning 15. I was getting into guitar playing at that time, and I was just blown away by this. Of course, I'm talking about the debut album, I Protest the Hero, called Kezia, released on August 30th, 2005, exactly 20 years ago at the time of posting this video. Maybe I'll get this up one day before the 20th birthday, like August 29th. I'm either going to post this video August 29th or August 30th. So yeah, August 30th, 2005. So this 2025, August 30th, will be the 20-year anniversary of Kezia. And this is Canadian progressive metal, has some melodic metalcore, mathcore, skate punk, post-hardcore, emo, screamo influences all in there. And yeah, it's the album that got me into that sound. Like I said, when I was 14, turning 15, I really loved the guitar playing at the time. Before this album, I was mostly into System of a Down. Got into their guitar style. First, it was a lot easier to play System of a Down than to play Protest the Hero stuff on guitar. So I kind of got into that, but then I wanted to expand my guitar skills and play things that were way beyond my capabilities, so I got into this. And before System of a Down, System of a Down was really my first metal band, and Protest the Hero was kind of my first prog metal band. But before metal, I was into Eminem and more into pop punk like Avril Lavigne, Green Day, Sum 41, Blink 182. And really, before that, when I was like under the age of 10, I was just into radio top 40 stuff and pop and Spice Girls and Backstreet Boys, Aqua, Celine Dion, stuff like that. So yeah, this really kind of means a lot in terms of the musical direction that I went in after hearing this and getting more into progressive metal, but more into metalcore, more into post-hardcore, those kinds of styles rather than just the alternative metal, new metal, alternative rock, pop punk, rap stuff and pop that I was listening to before. So the lineup on this album is Rhodey Walker on vocals, Tim McMillar on guitar, Mo Carlson on drums, Luke Hoskin on guitar, piano, and backing vocals, and Arif Mirabdolbagi on bass and backing vocals. They've got some other personnel on the album. Of course, they have Jada Kelly on vocals, doing the female vocals, kind of representing the voice of Kezia, the character that the album is named after. The credits on Wikipedia also list Paul DeStefano as doing vocals as well. I don't know if that's like in a gang vocal part, probably, because there are some gang vocals on here. I don't hear too many other voices beyond Rhodey, Luke, and Arif doing kind of lead vocals. But you know what? Oh, there is the acoustic part at the end of Blindfolds Aside, where there's a male singing with Jada Kelly, singing the Sin I Didn't Care For, Sin That Paid My Debts. That might be Paul DeStefano, or it might be there's another couple guest vocalists listed on here: London Spikolik doing vocals and executive production, and Lucas Venditti doing vocals. I'm not sure which one is doing that acoustic part at the end of Blindfolds Aside. So probably one of those three guys. And then the rest are probably doing participating in the gang vocal sections. Julius Buddy does the production, recording, mixing, and also does additional vocals. And Marco Brissett does additional guitars and string arrangements. I think Marco Brissett probably plays like the acoustic guitars in that kind of section at the end of Blindfolds Aside, and the classical guitar in the section at the end of Plateful of Our Dead, I believe. Someone please correct me down in the comments if I'm wrong about that. Joe Carvalho does the mastering, and Garnet Armstrong does the art direction and design. Ivan Otis did the photography. So before diving into the music and lyrics, let's start with the album art for this review. So here's the CD. I've also got it on vinyl here, because of course you could tell it's one of my favorite albums. Here's the front of the vinyl. Here's the back. Let's look at the insides. Very cool. So I like this album art. I've heard that the band doesn't really like it, or feel that it fits the music. It's flowers. The theme is flowers, which makes me think of the lyric, "I'd rather kill a stupid flower and spread its seeds around until a garden with our bullet-laden morals will be found," which is the last lyric on the album. Great lyric. In fact, I think all the lyrics on this album are top-notch, which is really impressive given the band they were teenagers when they wrote this album, which is really amazing. So the flower possibly represents innocence. Even when it's destroyed, its seeds live on. It reflects the idea that even rejecting tradition can plant the roots for something new. And yeah, the bullet-laden morals in that line refuses ethics with violence, suggesting that the morals that we live by are corrupted, built on violence, war, and hypocrisy. So, yeah, I'm not sure what all the lyrics on this album mean. I'll maybe get into some more of those later. It's a whole concept album that I'll try to explain. Maybe if someone wants to leave a comment, they can explain it better than me. But I'm meant to be talking about the art right now. So let's look more at the art in the CD. So it's kind of the red flower, the white flower. On the inside, we have like an on-off. It's an on-on switch. Both sides say on, where it looks like an amp switch. And I don't know, there's some stuff in here. Hard to tell what everything is. It's all kind of abstract. There's like a ladybug and some insects. Here's just a photo of the band. You can see how young they are. Very young looking people. You know, they're probably only like three years older than me. And like I was 14 or 15 when this came out. So they were like 17, 18 at this time. Pretty amazing. And here's a picture of some doll heads, like baby doll heads and fire. Not sure how that ties into the lyrical themes. I'm sure someone smarter than me can figure all that out. But yeah, cool. It just has a cool look to me. I like it, but heard the band does not. But enough about the look. What does the music sound like? So the vocals here are a great mix of harsh and clean vocals, great vocal harmonies, even some moments with some hardcore punk style kind of gang vocals, shouting things. You have to be okay with some harsh vocals to like this album, for sure. You have to be okay with the high-pitched emo influence clean vocals. For guitars, they're really fast, they're really busy lead guitars that rarely let up. They never give you a breath, just lots of lead guitars flying at your face to a mile a minute. Lots of great harmonizing dual leads as well. Lots of great use of dissonance and some nasty hardcore panic chords that are like a semitone apart. Some intermission type moments on the album, like I mentioned. There's an acoustic guitar section and classical guitar section where they bring in a guest musician to play those parts, I believe. So Marco Brissett, I believe, is the one who does that from looking at the credits on Wikipedia. And yeah, it's a really challenging but really fun album to learn on the guitar. And anybody who's trying to get better at prog metal guitar could really benefit from trying to play songs here from Kezia. to get down some techniques like finger tapping, sweeping, just fast playing, cool scales, chords, odd time signatures, time signature changes, lots of rhythm guitar parts here to just focus on power chords on this album. They start expanding on their rhythm guitars more on later albums where they get bigger and more complex chords. There's occasionally more complex chords here on Kezia, but a lot of the chords we're talking about in rhythm guitars were power chords or octaves, chugging, kind of stuff like that, a couple breakdowns. On bass, they really do treat the bass like a lead instrument too here with finger tapping, fast parts. They don't always just play the root of the chord or anything like that. The drums are very punk influenced drums. Mo plays like a small drum set, not like a big monster prog rock drum set. He's almost playing like a small punk rock, like bring it in the back of a van to a club kind of drum kit. But he also plays very fast and intricate parts and has the crazy time signature changes that you'd expect from a prog drummer. But the main kind of driving beats of the songs, the main parts that kind of go 4/4, he goes and does that punk like that kind of beat quite a lot. So that's kind of what the music sounds like in terms of like what all the instruments are doing and how they all come together and work together nicely on this very unique kind of progressive metal mixed with punk, post-hardcore, emo, mathcore kind of stuff. Now, what about the story? So there's a concept and story on this album. This album's about a young woman named Kezia who is sentenced to death. It's told from the perspectives of three key figures involved in her sentencing and execution: a prison priest, a prison guard, and Kezia herself. And each character's perspective is presented in a section of 3 songs, with the 10th and final song serving as a conclusion. The album explores themes of morality, justice, and social structures through the lens of Kezia's impending execution. The prison priest grapples with his role in preaching mercy while participating in a death sentence. The prison guard is also the executioner, and he's a hardened executioner, but wrestling with the brutality of his duty. Kezia maybe like a potential martyr figure here, and is a victim of a flawed system. It's not ever super specific about what her crime is, but I don't think she believes she's a criminal that deserves to be executed. I think it's implied that it's some kind of religious moral that she violated, and she's going to be punished for it in a brutal way. So Rhodey Walker kind of describes the album the same way. You have 3 characters on the album. They all describe a certain situation from their point of view, the execution of a woman, and they all have 3 songs to tell their story. In the first song of their trio of songs, they paint a general picture. The second track explains how the character feels connected to Kezia, and the third one's their view on the shooting of Kezia. And the last song brings the band into the picture, although the lyrics are written in the form of Kezia's final words. The deeper meaning of the concept here is the gradual downfall of our society, and they tried to make the lyrics timeless so the story could be situated in any time period. There's also political and social critical messages in it. So the story is really open to interpretation, themes of social criticism and individual responsibility interwoven throughout. I believe most of the lyrics, if not all, were written by the bass player Arif, and I really like his lyric writing style. On the first 3 Protest the Hero albums, he has some lyric duties. On the 3rd album by Protest the Hero, called Scurrilous, Rhodey Walker actually writes most of the lyrics, but Arif still wrote 3 songs on Scurrilous, I believe. But unfortunately, their 3rd album, Scurrilous, is their last with Arif. Now Rhodey's been writing all the lyrics since, and Arif's lyric style is sounds more literary, poetic, old-timey, metaphorical, and fantasy-inspired, and kind of biblical. and very, yeah, uses lots of interesting words and creative things like alliteration and stuff like that. Where Rhodey's lyrics on future albums after Kezia are more personal, literal, direct, and political. Though both lyricists have political messages. I personally like Arif's. If I had to pick a favorite, I like Arif's lyric style better, but I do like both Arif and Rhodey as lyricists for Protest the Hero. Just if I have to pick a favorite, I'd go with Arif. Is much more kind of cryptic and interesting to read the lyrics, but very, very cool sounding. So let's do a track by track here. Let's start with the opening track, No Stars Over Bethlehem. So on some versions of this album, it starts with a nice soft piano intro that I like. On the CD, I think you had to rewind to hear that, as it was in the negative timestamp of track one. And if you didn't rewind it, it would just kind of go straight into the uh, kind of like a build up before This Should Never Be scream that starts the album. And then you get pummeled with fast guitars and drums and a great set of riffs. Really fun song, No Stars Over Bethlehem, for practicing your finger tapping. The whole album here has their guitars tuned down a half step to E flat standard. On some tracks, they actually use drop D flat or drop C sharp, however you want to call it. But this one is just tuned a half step down to E flat standard. And the lyrics here, this one's from the perspective of the prison priest. The lyrics are dense, metaphor rich, and critique religious violence and the way that belief systems can be weaponized. It's a commentary on religious hypocrisy, violence, and corruption hidden under the guise of faith, and the misuse of holy imagery, twisting sacred symbols into tools for war and control. Second track is Heretics and Killers. This one, they actually use a drop tuning on the guitars in this track, so drop C sharp, lots of great guitar arpeggios, great vocal melodies, and a fun, spastic, waltzy, chaotic mathcore section in this song. There's also a music video for Heretics and Killers, which I love the music video for this. They're dressed up as the flying monkeys from The Wizard of Oz, so that's pretty fun. And I interpret the lyrics of this one, Heretics and Killers, as being the prison priest really struggling internally with maintaining his faith, knowing that they basically put people to death for, I don't know, it's almost like Kezia's perhaps like a non-believer, or as like being against the faith, so they're putting her to death, or maybe she's done something blasphemous or super sinful, or something like that. So there's lines in this track like, I watched my temple fall to pieces. I'm not your son, so why have you forsaken me? Prison preacher preaches his dead and buried gospel. And with my faith in ruins, my duty still breathes strong. I'm a parrot in a cage, just singing prayers to belong. So a lot of internal struggle with maintaining faith, knowing, you know, it's almost like he's having a crisis of faith with watching his temple fall to pieces and his dead and buried gospel, a parrot in a cage, just singing prayers to belong. So he's just kind of, maybe he believed in his faith at the beginning, but now he's kind of just a priest that's along for the ride and kind of sees that something wrong is going on here. Track 3 is Divinity Within. Great guitar intro on this one. It's actually the first song by Protest the Hero that I tried to learn on guitar when I was back in my teens. My cousin Sean, who also really liked Protest the Hero, still likes them, I think. And he was trying to learn it as well. He tried to learn the Luke part while I was learning the Tim part. We got it mostly down, but we were pretty sloppy back then in our teens. And since then, I've learned both the Luke and the Tim part of this song, and I'm slightly less sloppy, but it's still very difficult to play this perfectly, all this stuff. And I haven't practiced it in a while. But yeah, this track, Divinity Within, is about the prison priest watching Keziah's execution after he saw her dine with, I guess he watched her dine with loved ones the night before, and tears were shed during her final meal. And in this one, he says, I watched my temple fall to pieces, which I think he had, was that same line in Heretics and Killers and Divinity Within? Yes, I think it is. Um, and yeah, this song continues to illustrate the loss of faith of this prison priest throughout this whole process of this execution. He, I believe, will be reading her rights during the execution. Then the gunmen will get in their place and shoot Keziah like she's a target. So I guess she gets killed by firing squad. So at least that kind of sets the time period. Like guns are invented. So like sometimes when you're listening to this, it almost sounds like it's way back thousands of years ago. But then they have, references to certain things that are a bit more modern. So it kind of makes it impossible for it to be too old timey. So they have guns in this time period where this story is set. So yeah, it's probably like some alternate timeline or something. And yeah, the prison priest, he's the one that gets to ask her what are her final words, uh, which is the last lyric of this song. Now we're moving on to part two, the three songs that are from the perspective of the prison guard, starting with Bury the Hatchet, the fourth track on the album. This one is tuned to drop C sharp for the guitarists out there. This track starts off as the heaviest track on the album, vocally, in my opinion, with the scream line, well, place your justice in my palm, and then I'll make a fist and punch your grimaced face until every knuckle breaks and bleeds in resistance to my sidewalk painting. The lyrics here are from the prison guard's perspective. And the prison guard is also the executioner in this story. So he talks about how people he kills beg him to please spare their life. And he says lines like, I swear I have compassion. I've just been trained to disregard the prisoner's life because I'm the prison guard. So he's trying to show like, hey, this isn't just a job for me. Like it's a paycheck. And I am a person that has compassion, but this is kind of my duty and my obligation to kill as the executioner. Fifth track is Nautical. This one's guitar tuned to E flat standard. Nice opening riff with fast, low power chords and harmonized octaves between the guitars. Love the pinch harmonics in the intro too. The lyrics on this one are more metaphorical and a bit harder to tie to the story. The line, the ultimate form of treason is the treacherous use of reason, is an interesting line. Along with other lines throughout the album, it does make it seem like Keziah is being executed for something like blasphemy, like she was using reason in a treacherous way, or speaking out against the religion of authority or something, and or claiming it's not true, using reason, or possibly like Keziah being a woman. There's references throughout the album to that aspect, to kind of more of a feminist message to the album, like maybe the women in this religion, if they're required to dress a certain way, act a certain way, not do certain things, have certain behaviors in their society, and she went against it. Not 100% clear to me what Keziah's crime is that she's being executed for, but I've listened to this album hundreds of times. I still don't know. I'm not a lyrical expert. I'm more of a music person, but I do find the lyrics on this album really interesting. So in this song, they actually reference America in the lyrics. Before, it actually seemed ambiguous where this was taking place. And in some ways, from the sounds of it, it doesn't really seem like it could be America, because I don't think America has, well, maybe in the future, who knows? It could be like set in the future. But it seems kind of like a distant past land where religious authoritarians rule. Could be in the future. great that it leaves the time period so ambiguous, and hopefully America or any country really doesn't turn into a place that does anything like these kinds of religious executions. I know there are places in the world that unfortunately do similar things like this. But yeah, that's what's going on here. Track 6 is Blindfolds Aside. This is the first Protest the Hero song I ever heard. There's a music video for this that my cousin Sean let me know about, and that inspired me to check out more of their tracks and ultimately buy the CD here. And I love the vocal harmonies on this track. The A Sin I Didn't Care For, but a Sin That Paid My Debts part is really catchy. And after the main song ends, there's the acoustic extension of this song where they have Jada Kelly singing that line and an acoustic guitar strumming and playing an outro solo. But before going into that acoustic section, they end the main electric part of the song with playing this 3-note quick succession just over and over again for a little while. It's a nice epic way to end the main proper part of the song before the add-on there, the acoustic add-on. Now, the lyrics on Blindfold Aside are from the executioner's perspective. The repeated line of drop the gun near the end with the pull the trigger. It's almost like the angel and devil on the shoulder, like one side being like, drop the gun, the other side being like, pull the trigger. So the moral dilemma of the executioner being like, should I just put down the gun or should I actually kind of do my job and pull the trigger? Yeah, quite a dilemma there. Not wanting to be a killer, but doing it because it's a job for a paycheck, I guess. So the lyrics almost make it seem like the executioner knows Kezia personally. Um, it, but I'm not sure if that's true. They imply that she gets blindfolded to atone for her sin before being killed and before being shot, and that her hands get locked up as well. And at the end, the dilemma of the executioner is to pull the screaming trigger, watch your carcass bleed me dry, or drop the gun and try to shake away the blindfold from your eyes. Um, so he's kind of like almost thinking about setting her free or something. The lyrics explore the psychological burden of executing someone under a corrupt and morally ambiguous justice system. And the narrator confronts the tension between survival, following orders, and conscience, recognizing innocence or injustice. It critiques societal structures that rationalize violence while also portraying the deeply personal guilt of the one tasked with carrying it out. So yeah, really interesting stuff there from the executioner's perspective. Then we jump into part 3, which is from Kezia's perspective, with track 7, which is She Who Mars the Skin of Gods. So this one starts with a pick scrape on the guitars, which you don't hear as often in metal and prog music. It's more of like a punk rock thing, so that's kind of them bringing in their punk rock influences. And something I noticed about the way the album is produced that I haven't mentioned yet is like each guitar is maybe around like 90% pan to each side in the headphones. I think that might be for the whole album. So if you want to hear Luke playing, you'll hear him kind of on one side of the headphones, and you hear his parts if you listen in like one earbud, if you kind of want to figure out what's Luke playing, and then you can hear Tim playing in the other earbud. So I think that's kind of cool. Wanted to mention that. The lyrics for She Who Mars the Skin of God is from the perspective of Kezia. She's thinking about her mother before her execution. She's got a letter, but she knows it's not from her mother. She feels like she needs her mother to tuck her in one last time before she gets executed by shotgun. That's kind of what's going on here. Track 8 is Turn Soonest to the Sea. The main guitar riff on this song is really awesome. It has the great arpeggios, harmonies, almost has like a neoclassical vibe to it. And it's grown to be among my favorite tracks on the album, but it's really hard to pick a favorite song. They're really all my favorites. The breakdown on this song is probably the best breakdown on the album, possibly the best Protest the Hero breakdown. It's pretty simple but great with the line, your flesh means more than you. The catchy fade out outro is part of kind of like the chorus, even though their songs don't really have choruses, especially on this album. but it's the catchy and fun to sing along with part fun to sing along with live, where they sing maybe someday when this bloody skull has dried, know our city is in ruins, when our greatest source of pride. Kind of that part, really catchy, probably the catchiest part on the album, most kind of sing along anthemic part. Now the lyrics on this track, Turn Soonest to the Sea, are perhaps the most feminist of the songs on the album. The whole album has a bit of a feminist message. It references Veda, the virgin Roman goddess. Is it Veda? Vesta? I forget the name of the goddess, but goddess of home and family who represents chastity. Maybe I should look at the lyrics in the booklet here instead of my notes where I probably made typos. The lyrics in here? Yeah. Vesta, not Veda. Vesta. Virgin Roman goddess of home and family, and she represents chastity. So sometimes I think like maybe Kezia did something just like, you know, kind of like a sex before marriage kind of thing or something, or just like dressing provocatively, because there's like references to this goddess of chastity. And this song talks a lot about how women's anatomy, their flesh, their body, their physical appearance really defines them in society. There's even lines in here that says, put some plastic in your tits and you look better as a blonde. So that kind of talks about like breast implants and, dyeing your hair. So that almost kind of dates the album to, so it can't be like that far in the past. Like, I don't know how long ago breast implants were made, or women dyeing their hair, but it kind of talks about that as well. It's a really interesting track, great song. Track 9 is The Divine Suicide of K. Also been a favorite of mine at times, arguably still my favorite. The intro riff's awesome, vocals are great. Lyrics, I better think of my answers now because I know the questions will be asked, is how it opens up. Could refer to Kezia being asked what her final words are. So I think she's maybe thinking about what her final words are. And then I really like the alliteration in the line. It's true that tactless team totem poles turn tolerance to tired taboos. I can't quite figure out what that one means, but it just sounds really cool. And I'm walking one last mile is likely Kezia walking to her execution, kind of her last mile of her life, really. And like the gunman with his future and the prison priest's golden calf, the golden calf is a biblical symbol of false idols. So this kind of suggests that both the gunman and the priest are serving false ideals, violence and empty ritual, rather than justice or compassion. So the album as a whole really portrays a world where morality has been warped into dogma and justice replaced by violence and authenticity buried under masks and rituals. And the last song here is A Plateful of Our Dead. The music on this one is great. This track has also been a favorite of mine at times. Very fun to play on guitar, drop C sharp, nice riffs and pinch harmonics. I like the outro lead riff on the electric guitar, like main part of the proper song, but there's also this classical guitar outro and solo after the proper song ends. And I believe that classical guitar part is not played by Luke or Tim, but by the guest guitarist Marco Brissett. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong on that, and if it is Luke or Tim, or if it's someone else, please let me know in the comments. And the lyrics on A Plateful of Our Dead, well, this is the finale, really. I guess these are Kezia's final words. And I noticed some things in the lyrics, like they reference a horse multiple times. I think it's kind of supposed to be like beating a dead horse, that kind of talking point. Like, the only proof I have that we shot and killed this horse is a bleeding heart. When I'm in this state of reflection, when you hand me whips and 2x4s, I could never bring them down. and beat the same horse as before. So they talked about shot and killed the horse and then beating the same horse as before. So beating a dead horse, I think, is the expression in English. Suggests continuing futile arguments about morality would be beating a dead horse. And Kezia just refuses to engage in that endless cycle of guilt and debate anymore and seeks a new way forward. And then there's the line that ends the album, which ties back to the album art with the flower. I'd rather kill a stupid flower and spread its seed around until a garden with our bullet-laden morals will be found, symbolizing the killing of old ideals. The flower, I guess Kezia is the flower, and the seeds, sowing the seeds of something new, even though they're tainted by past violence. So maybe Kezia is thinking, like, if she's killed, hey, I'm just a flower, my seeds are going to spread, and like she'll be a martyr, and it's kind of planting a garden with different morals that will come up, and there will be a redemption, and like people will kind of rise up and understand her perspective. So perhaps redemption is possible here for this society or something, or she's almost like kind of being like a Jesus figure in a way at this point. Yeah, it's a very, very deep album in terms of what's all going on here in the story. Very cool concept. So those are my thoughts on all the tracks. Now let's touch on how do I rate this? How do I score this album? First, I want to touch on innovation. I think this album is very unique and innovative for the time in terms of the combination of styles present. I can't think of any band that blended progressive metal with metalcore, mathcore, skate punk, post-hardcore emo before Protest the Hero, but also do let me know in the comments if there are other bands, if anyone can think of a band that blended all those genres before Protest the Hero. The fact that they were so ambitious with their level of technical complexity in the instrumental and vocal parts. Not many bands were playing guitar like this at the time in 2005, except for maybe Between the Buried and Me is like the closest I could think of. They were really ambitious. They kind of wrote guitar parts that were too hard for their 17, 18-year-old selves to play, and then they just kind of forced themselves to learn it. And they were really ambitious with a deep concept album. I also really like the sound of this album. Perhaps it's not for everybody, of course. And I believe it wasn't performed to a click track or anything. The album, so you can kind of hear the sound. I like hearing the sound of the band, like changing tempos. It feels kind of real and raw. And the album flow and sequence is just perfect. It fits the narrative of the concept really well. The acoustic and classical guitar interludes and the piano interludes are right where they need to be to kind of get a breather from the heaviness and the chaos that you hear in this album. So how do I give it an overall score? So my rating system, my top scoring system is Masterpiece. When I find one of those, I'm like, we got to buy a physical copy of that now. And each year I only really have like 1 to 10 albums that would get such a high rating. Then below that, I've got Near Masterpiece, excellent below that, very good, good, average, below average, and not good. So I'm going to give Kezia by Protest the Hero my Masterpiece tier rating. Probably still my favorite album of all time. That's why I'm doing this kind of special classic album review on the 20th anniversary. There are other albums that are close to it and rival it for being my favorite albums. Of course, I love some albums like Between the Buried and Me's, Colors. I love stuff from Haken, like Aquarius and The Mountain. Really, other Protest the Hero albums, even like Fortress, are really awesome. And, Dream Theater albums, I love a lot of those bands, and Caligula's Horse and Opeth. So if you like this kind of music and those kind of bands, and this is your first time seeing my channel, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to stay in the loop on when I talk about music like that. So I do talk about new stuff very often, weekly as it comes out, and give my first impressions on it. I don't talk about anything as deeply as I've just talked about this album, as I've been going on for like 40 minutes on one album. Usually I give like quick first impressions, talk for like 2 minutes about an album, maybe 3, But yeah, this one I think I needed to do a deep dive on it because it's the album that got me into my favorite genre, progressive metal. And I will forever thank Protest the Hero and the album Kezia for that. And I look forward to hearing whatever Protest the Hero does next. I believe they are nearly complete on making their new album. So hopefully that will drop, hopefully 2025, but I'm not sure. We might get it in early 2026. I'll definitely be talking about the new Protest the Hero album on my channel when it comes out and giving my first impressions on that. In the meantime, those are my thoughts on Protest the Heroes Kezia. What do you think of this album? Let me know that down in the comments. And do you like these kind of long form reviews where I talk about music more in depth and talk about, artwork and like who's in the band and give ratings and talk about lyrics and music and everything? If you do, also let me know. I could do more of these. They do take a lot more time than my usual videos, so I'm not going to do a full review like this for everything, but I'm curious and interested in doing more of these maybe in the future on my channel. So stay tuned for that, and peace out.